Hello everybody and welcome to LandO's lock-ins. It is time for the stage 4 major. We are headed back to LAN. There are all kinds of speculation in terms of how are certain teams going to perform. Can we see certain rosters rise to the occasion? Will teams begin to crumble? As this will be like the first time that we've had a number of different players, rookies from last year, rookies from this year, officially on LAN. It will be some players' first ever LAN opportunity. Oh boy, it is going to be it's going to be difficult to predict, but I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of jump into this now. If you are seeing LandO's lock-ins for the first time, essentially this is a weekly series that I do on my YouTube channel, where essentially I go through the pick'em process each week. So for every home series that we've had, I've been doing this basically for like the last month or so, just kind of going in depth with my pick'em process. And this isn't necessarily for everyone to strictly just listen to my opinions, but it's to listen to my opinions and formulate your own. And so that's why I like to kind of have that conversation down in the comments. If you see a series that I'm talking about, a matchup that I'm talking about, and you're like, well, I think it could go this way, feel free to let me know that down in the comments. But last stage, we were so close. We were so very close to getting a perfect bracket. I think it would have been the first perfect bracket, at least in like CDL history or this year history. I really don't know, because I know that the pick'ems have only existed for so long. So it was hard. For those that don't know, in stage 3, I nearly had a perfect bracket. I had every single matchup correct, not based off of maps, because that's actually impossible, but based off of just strictly like who won versus who lost, until the finals, in which I had New York winning the finals, and Faze ended up besting them out. So it is what it is. Obviously happy for the Atlanta Faze boys to get the job done. I just had a little more faith in New York at the time. So maybe I've learned from that. Maybe that was just a one-hit wonder. Who knows? I'm just excited again to see how close we can get. Maybe today. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we go back to back, get a near perfect bracket, or maybe now we have reached the point of where we now have the potential to get the perfect bracket. Now, we were looking pretty good coming into the stage 4 major outside of last week, and then the LA Thieves home series just ruined everything. I think I went like 5 for 5, or I went 5 for 10, I should say, in those matches, which is one of the worst weeks that I've had in a long time. So again, confidence somewhat shaken, maybe a little bit. I don't really know. But again, hope you guys enjoy the series. We'll go and get into the conversations. And like I said, I hope this is just a nice little listen for everybody. A chance for you to kind of go over your pick'ems, or just hear me kind of go over the matchups ahead of what should be a phenomenal weekend. Cannot say that enough. Super excited for the players to be on LAN. Great atmosphere for them. It's the ability for everybody to have the highest level of competition possible. Like I said, so much is on the line. There are a lot of teams who are literally fighting for their lives right now in regards to trying to make it in the top 8 for champs. I think we have like 3 teams currently that are solidified right now, that being like Atlanta, New York, and Toronto, that know at least they're going to be in top 8, but that doesn't mean that nobody is still fighting. There's a lot of money on the line, a lot of pride, things like that, etc. So let's go to get into it. Let's go and get into our first match, this one being New York versus Minnesota. So we start off things on somewhat of an interesting note. Now, these aren't going to be the exact order of how the matches happen schedule wise. I'm just kind of going over them in order. So we'll kind of go from top to bottom, and I'll see if I can, does this work? I think you guys can see the full bracket. Yeah, okay, you guys can see it. Okay, I would make sure that you guys can see the whole bracket, not just like the winner side or the loser side, etc. So again, we're starting off on a very interesting match, because New York are not going to be having ASIM with them there, as he's currently stuck in Toronto. Absolutely wish the best for him. He's such a great person, such a great player, and does a lot for that NYSL team. So it's a shame that he's not going to be there for NYSL, considering that they're looking to try and improve on what was a second place finish. They still play well throughout the stage, but they go total 4-1 in groups for Group B. And they're bringing in Decimate for the major. So a lot of details there. We got to see Decimate play for the Surge a little while. NYSL are also coming off a 3-0 loss versus the Ultra, which has to hurt a little bit. There have been a lot of people talking about how they just do not look nearly as clean as they did kind of to end out stage 3, which I agree with. And then you have Minnesota, who's kind of on the upturn, right? Looking better pretty much every series. They've had a very convincing performance versus the Atlanta Faze. They lost that one 3-1, but they looked really good in it. Like the hard points were close. The control came down to the wire. Like they were a very well orchestrated team. So The only thing for me kind of throughout this tournament for Rocker, because I think that, you know, sky's the limit for the most part for this team. It's just they have to be better in the search and destroys. And I think if they can improve on that, the level of improvement in the S&Ds will indicate how far they make it in the majors. So I think if the S&Ds are on point, like they are just like that search and destroy team that we kind of expect with this lineup, I think that they can, you know, maybe eclipse the top 4. But if search stories are not there, that could very well be the one thing that kind of holds them back just a little bit from being able to take down some of these top caliber teams. Now this series, like I said, just getting into it, this is a hard one to judge. Like I've basically spent the entire morning. It's currently 3 p.m. my time. I've been working on this since like 10 a.m. On and off a little bit. Just trying to like get a good understanding of like how both these teams sit. Like I've been going on Twitter, just trying to see like, you know, what are the vibes like for the New York team? Are they down because they're not going to have Asim on the team? Are they motivated now because they, you know, want to try to prove people wrong? Like where is the motivation at, etc. And like I said, this one is just a hard one to judge because we don't know where New York's going to be at. We also have the LAN environment kind of thrown into this. This is the first time we'll be able to watch Mac on LAN in the CDL. Like I said, in the pro division, not the challenger side. This is the first match we get to watch Hydra play on LAN. This first match we get to watch Standy play on LAN. So there's, like I said, a lot of variables coming into this that you just really don't know how to formulate. Like we have not been on LAN in a very, very long time. How much of an impact does that cause for certain players when you've not been in this environment for a while? Now I know there won't be a crowd, but still, you know, the jitters can be there. Maybe not as much, but there still is a lot of potential for it to be there. So I think this is going to be a fun battle to watch. Standy versus Hydra, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting battle just because both of those guys are kind of in the Rookie of the Year conversation. Probably top 3 along with Insight right now. Another variable that I'm thinking about is Clay. Really just hasn't been as consistent. Does that now change with LAN? And I think this is kind of a fun conversation to have because the majority of the video, we're going to be talking about, you know, just LAN impact this team, just LAN impact that team, etc. And I do think that LAN is going to kind of decide a little bit of my decision here. I want to go with subliners because I trust that this team will still be good with Decimate. But I think because of the amount of change that you're going to have with this team and then just kind of instantly into it, it's going to be a little bit different because, like I said, you have Mac and Hydra, new environment for them, new team as well for Hydra. Hydra specifically is going to have a lot to adapt to. And, you know, you go from a player like Asim now to Decimate, it's going to be a change up. It's going to be a little bit different. And with Rocker just being on the upturn right now, it's hard to not want to go with them. Now, if this was, you know, strictly, you know, NYSL just traveling to LAN, I think I would go with New York, but I think I'm going to go with Rocker here. As shocking as that may be, which I don't really think it's all that shocking just because a team is literally missing a player, one of their most vocal players, one of their most impactful players on the team. It's hard for me to not go with the opponents, especially when the opponents, like I said, have been looking much better as of late. They're a very motivated team. I think this is a roster that has a lot to prove. And I think that Minnesota comes into this with a game plan. New York, like I said, they just have a lot of things that they can't necessarily prepare for. Like you can't prepare for Hydra to be on LAN and now with a new teammate. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Minnesota 3-1. I just feel confident and kind of like that 3-1 prediction. I think New York maybe gets a W here or there, but it's just hard to predict which one. But I like Minnesota. I do. I think that New York aren't going to be bad, but again, you're facing off against some amazing teams. Like you're not going to have an easy matchup at all kind of throughout this bracket if you're New York, and that could definitely, you know, cause some problems. So we move on, and we move on to a big one. Chicago versus Dallas. It is the E Clasico. Chicago and Dallas both go 3-2 in their respective groups. Chicago lose a series versus Atlanta 3-0. They also get the shocking loss versus Surge game 5. But they most recently beat the Thieves 3-1, in which they outslayed the Thieves. I don't know if this is a record. I don't keep track of this particular stat, but they outslayed the Thieves by 85 kills. I've never seen anything like that. I don't know if that's a record, but I feel like it should be a record for the most part, unless like we're taking into consideration like maybe there was a grand final this year that, you know, possibly had that. But in just a typical best of 5, I've never seen a number that high before. I could be wrong. I very well could be wrong, but just being outslayed by 85 kills, in which it goes to a 4th. We didn't go to a game 5, went to a game 4. It's pretty crazy to think about. And then obviously for Dallas, kind of going more on topic with them, they lose to NYSL and Toronto. They beat Florida in a game 5, which was great. And then another notable loss that they have, which I know I already mentioned, the loss to New York, but they also do go to a game 5 with New York as well. They just seem to be looking better. Now with Vivid in the lineup, the team seems to be readily improving. I think Shotzi is now kind of stepping into the position last year where he was kind of the guy that you had to look upon to slay. He was the player who had to lead this team in that particular position. And I think now he feels comfortable to do so. I'm not sure if that was just maybe a playstyle change, if it's, now kind of having some more consistency. However, that may have gone. So, you do kind of have that sitting for the Empire coming into this series is that, yeah, they do look better. They look kind of like a similar situation to Rocker. Like, yes, this team does look better. And I'm looking at Dallas. Like I said, their last 2 series both go to game 5. They go to 3 game 5s in stage 4. The first one versus London. And they have a good history, I should say, in game 5s. But my worry with Empire, though, and I'm actually taking a look at their last 2 losses, which again, you cannot take away. You cannot take away their performances, how they looked, versus Florida, the close game versus New York. But my problem is that they're getting outslayed. Like, they're getting outslayed by a decent margin. They go -25 versus Florida for the win. They go -30 versus NYSL for the loss. They are not outslaying. They're not even close necessarily in these last few games and I mentioned these last 2 because they're against top caliber rosters, and Chicago is one of those teams that is kind of on that level as well, to where if you cannot rely on outslaying the opponents, at times you're going to get a victory. But I forget the stat. It's like 92% of the time, if you are outslaying the opponent, you win the game. It's kind of the way that it goes. So I have an issue with Empire in the situation to where I just don't know if they have the ability to outslay a roster like Optic, a team who literally just outslayed, which granted, it is the Thieves. The Thieves did look good in their first series, did not look good versus Optic, but they have the potential to outslay a good team by 85 kills. And your Empire, you're thinking, hey, we're facing off against some top caliber rosters and we're getting outslayed by 25-30. So again, we're kind of in this situation where I've not been super impressed with the AR so far throughout this stage. I think they've had a few bright spots, but it's mostly been on the side of the SMGs. At times you see Krim take over for a map. But I don't know. I don't think that we see Dallas close out this series for the simple fact that I just don't trust enough in their slime to get the job done. So I do have Optic winning this, and I'm hesitant because I do want to see this one go to a game 5, and I think that it has the potential to. Whenever you do have a matchup like this, which there's going to be a lot of hype around this one, we talk about rivalries, just a number of different things coming into it. I think that both teams play at their highest potential. And I think that Dallas, of course, have the ability to be crafty. I think if there is a time where you're going to see, the ARs play well, or at least play better, it's going to be in a series like this where there is a lot on the line and Crimsix is motivated. The entire team is hungry to get a victory to start off the stage. You've got already Elimination Bracket. You're going to be on the stage for the first time. Again, a lot of little things like that. But just simply because of the slang problem, I just cannot trust Empire enough, I think, to be able to do that versus a team like Chicago, who looked great in hardpoint specifically. So with that, I'm going to go with Chicago 3-2. Very well could be like 3-1 maybe. It could be an Empire victory if it goes to game 5 because of how good they've been in game 5s. But I'm still going to go with Chicago regardless of the map count. So, all right, we've got, like I said, Minnesota taking down NYSL to start. We have Chicago beating Dallas in a wonderful game 5. Now we've got the elimination bracket to take a look at, and we are starting things off with the LA Thieves taking on the LA Gorillas. It's the battle for Los Angeles. For the Thieves, it will be their 3rd series with Hook and Slasher in. Like I said, they lose a game 5 round 11 versus the Rocker. Then they get smacked by Chicago again, where they get outslayed by 85 kills. And outside of the series versus Optic, which just was not close. Of course, they win the search and destroy, but that's it. In the series versus Rocker, I feel like they should have won that. Like, there were different times where they just looked like they just had this explosiveness where it was just like, okay, like this is where the team can get to. Like, I think it was and one of the hard points. Let me go back and just check my notes. I know they had outslayed, like, what was it? It was like a 250 to 59 game on Moscow. Like, they just came out and just destroyed Minnesota on Moscow 250-59. So like I said, you just know that this team at times has the ability to be explosive. It's just a matter of can they reach that consistently. And this probably isn't the right time to have this conversation, because on the other side for Gorillas, this team just hasn't had any explosiveness whatsoever. You know, they're 0-8 in hardpoint so far throughout this stage. They're 1-4 in S&D. They are 0-5 in total series. They are currently the worst performing team right now in the CDL. And we know the story with LAG. Like there's no doubt about it. You know, they could stand a chance in the search and destroys. So far throughout this stage, they have not, and that is what's penalized them the most. You know, at times they can be good in control as well. You give them the right map, you give them the right mode. And while the Thieves have only played standoff search and destroy with this new lineup, they have lost their last 2 controls. So I think I think this way, Gorillas will either steal a search and destroy or a control, but that'll be it. I don't think we see this go to a game 5. If we do, that's very worrisome for the Thieves. But I think if LAG can win a hard point, then that's what makes this kind of very scary. That opening hard point, that's where it's like, okay, hold on, and that very well could be the case, because if my mind serves me right, this will be the very first series, Thieves versus Gorillas. So knowing that, you know, that could definitely kind of change the pace of how we look at this match. At least I think it's the first series. It's at least on the first day. So you never know. Like a team like Gorillas, who's just motivated, hungry, a lot of history with this team. You know, 3 out of the 4 players have won a world championship before, back in World War II. I know that's a common term, common phrase with this roster. So a lot of this comes down to the opening hardpoint, and I'm just betting that the Thieves do win that. And I think they win either the S&D or the control, and then they close it out in a game 4 hardpoint. So that is the way I'm going to sit with this one. I am going to go 3-1. LAG, not often do they get 3-0. They usually come back at you in one of these games. But that first hard point, that is terrifying. It is terrifying if you do lose that versus this team. And again, you get in a new environment, who knows, right? And speaking of environment, that's kind of one of the major conversations I'm going to have about our next series, Royal Ravens versus the Surge. I'm going to cut straight to the chase here. I have a feeling that the Surge take this, and I feel like I shouldn't, right? Because after the Surge's lost to Paris, I feel like I should not have that thought. I should not have a whole lot of, you know, nice things to say, I guess more positive things to say about the Surge lineup. But I just think being in a different environment could really help out this team. I think all these guys, they've played in the big moments before. I'm just still not convinced that despite London beating the Gorillas in a matchup where just somebody has to get a win, that they're on the upturn yet. Like, they looked hyped. They looked like they were in a good kind of sense for a moment. But I don't know. I just don't feel it right now. I don't. And I very well could lose out on this prediction, and that's fine. You know, the Ravens very well could steal this series and just kind of look, you know, a little bit better. You know, that very well could happen. They could win versus the Surge, maybe take down the Paris Legion in the next round. That is very possible. But I'm just not convinced, like I said, that London are on the upturn. You know, while they did beat the Gorillas, you have to consider that it was a round 11 search and destroy. It was a control that was lost. You know, there were still issues in the game plan that just did not look as well coordinated. And so I think that this is going to be a Seattle win, and I'm gonna go for a crazy prediction. I'm gonna go for a 3-0. I am. This is, like I said, when I always mention this, the elimination round 1 games, I would say outside of Thieves versus Gorillas, these are usually some of the hardest ones to predict. Now, I would say in this event, there were a lot of difficult matchups. Like last stage, honestly, it felt like some were kind of more well-known than others. I feel like with this one, it's a lot of cloudiness. Like, you know, a team looks good, then they don't. And well, how do they do at the major? Now we have LAN being involved, and that definitely could change things up. And this is another situation where I think because of LAN, I think that something does turn around. Now, my overall opinion on LAN, just very quickly before we move on, is that I think it will affect certain teams. I don't know if it's going to affect the top teams. I think that it could affect certain rosters in a minute way, but I think on the lower side, on the lower tier of teams, I think it has the ability to change things up significantly. How do you define significantly? I don't really know. But I like the Surge in this game. I think they do take it 3-0. I think they can look good in the hard points. I think if they could turn things around in the search and destroys, and they won the last 2 controls. London at times are good in control, sometimes they're not. I think that, you know, again, you have a good spark with this team, but I just think when you get in a LAN environment, just with this Surge roster, I just feel comfortable about this roster. Like sitting on the main stage, preparing for their games, I think this team has been there before. They played alongside each other at times before. You have a few pieces that have been with each other previously. So I think this team wins it, and I think that they beat the Ravens to start off their first series. Ravens go home in top 12, and maybe they change up their roster coming into stage 5. Who knows? So we'll go and move on. We will go back to winners round 2, so the top side of the bracket, with Atlanta Faze versus the Minnesota Rocker. Now, this is going to be a very hyped up series considering their battle to close out stage 4, how well that it went, I guess for Faze, but also at the same time for Rocker as well. Minnesota will have a decent amount of momentum coming off a win versus New York, if that prediction is in fact correct. And I think that this team can reach their potential, like that they have the ability to have the right makeup to counter a team like Atlanta. Like if you can be crafty in the search and destroys, you can contest in the hard points and be great in control. Like that's a good, like kind of, I wouldn't say like it's an intended counter, but it will work out well if they could be a team like that. And Priesta, he looked great in their series versus Atlanta. They got outslayed by 28 despite how close that it was. And that's kind of a more of a positive on the side of Rocker for doing the right things. Now, I know I just did discount Empire for getting outslayed and winning versus Florida. But I would say in this situation for a team like Minnesota versus Atlanta, which is a different type, caliber type of team, I would say, and I know that we're talking about a win versus a loss in this situation, but I think for Minnesota, there is a lot of hype for this team. There is a lot of potential for this team. And I think that they have the ability to contest and make this close. But I don't know if they can take a hard point. I don't. I think that they gave their best effort by playing up to their competition in that match versus Atlanta. It was a big week for them at the time. A lot of things kind of going on for them. Their life was not confirmed in Group A, but I just don't think they're going to be able to make too much of a sizable dent. I really don't know what game mode they could take. Maybe it's the control again. I don't know if their S&D is going to be up to par versus a team like Atlanta. Atlanta's hardpoint looks excellent right now, and so that's where we kind of get into the situation of like maybe there's a dent somewhere, but I just don't know if it's going to be too sizable enough to cause a reaction or to be able to send us to a game 5. So I'm going to have Atlanta winning this 3-1. I think it will be a similar result to how they played in stage 4, but I don't think it's going to be as close in the hard points. It very well could be. Like I said, if Minnesota comes out, steals the first hard point, I always talk about it, that changes everything. But I do not think that they'll be able to do that. Like I said, I think that they gave their best effort that they could in that match versus Atlanta in stage 4. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get that chance to do it again, or at least have a better performance this go around. So let's move on. Toronto versus Optic. Toronto had a great group stage. They go from getting 3-2, so they go game 5 versus Florida, lose that, to winning their next 4 series straight in 3-0s. So they have won 12 maps in a row coming into this. I tell you what, man, there's just something about this team. Like this is one of my favorite stories on the year. Has been the Ultra. Just, they've shown that they are a consistent lineup. Like they are going to be a team. I don't care what it is right now. They're going to be a team coming into champs where they will be one of the favorites. Like I don't know if they will be the favorite with, teams like Atlanta and whatnot, but I think that they will be one of the favorites, top 3 most likely heading into champs, just because they have shown that consistency. It was not just a one stage type of thing. It has been now over multiple stages where they have shown this impressive performance and just this consistency as a lineup. And while I feel like Chicago is embracing more of a slay heavy classic Optic style, I think Toronto are just too well suited for teams like this. I think they are too reliable in all 3 game modes. And you have to consider, and I know I'm kind of already getting the prediction for this, and it may already be obvious, but you have to consider Chicago after stage 4, 6-2 in hardpoint, great. 3-3 in S&D, okay, thought they were better in S&D. 2-3 in control, not nearly as reliant in that control mode. So with how great that Ultra have been in control, I don't want to say that you're marking it up for them, but they at least already have 1 game. And if you're talking about Toronto's records overall, kind of throughout their stage 4 performance, what we're looking at 5-1 in hardpoint, 5-0 in control, 4-2 in S&D. Again, this team is just terrifying. Like they're not allowing, like they have not gone to a round 5 in control this stage. When they're beating teams, they've only gone to 1 round 11. The 2 S&D losses that they have are versus Florida in their very first series, as indicated. I know I mentioned that, they obviously got 3-0, so that makes sense. But they're just taking down team after team. Like, they're beating NYSL and Hardpoint, which is impressive. They're beating Dallas in all 3 game modes. They're competitive versus Florida in Hardpoint as well. So it's just like, this team, I think, is fixing their hardpoint, which could be a problem for Chicago. I think this team is better in S&D, and I think they're better in control. So I think at the very best for Chicago, you get to a game 4, honestly, and maybe Chicago shows some grit, and I think that they have the ability to do that. But I think this one also ends in a 3-1. I think that Chicago off a win versus Empire is great, but I think that we're going to see that Toronto is in fact a step above in this series, and I think they're just going to prove a lot in this particular game. And they're going to prove that they are a very well-rounded team once more, and like I said, they can handle the slang of a roster like Chicago, and maybe even combat that slang with some great teamwork. In the post-game interview that Bance had, I think Lottie asked a wonderful question. It was something along the lines of like, how do you think your team is going to translate to LAN? And his thing was like, you know what? I don't think that we're a team that is going to be affected by LAN because of the way that we play. We're not based off of these 1v1 type of matchups. In fact, we're actually a team that is so well versed in teamwork and synchronization that I don't think we're going to be affected by that. And I was like, wow, that is a great answer. That is somebody who knows their team very well. So I think that, again, I think that Ultra are going to be too well suited for this, and I think that they get the best of Optic here. So we'll move on to the elimination round 2 side. We've got Florida versus LAT. And to me, this is one of the harder matchups to predict, actually. If it does in fact come to be. Florida are just a hard team to pinpoint where they're at, how they're going to play. They unfortunately, despite having the same record as Dallas, but because they lose to Dallas, they do get the 4th seed, which means that they are starting things off in elimination. And while I did predict Florida well at stage 3, I don't know where they're at right now. Like I said, they start off the stage. Actually, I think I have the notes here. Let me see. I think I have it here for the most part. But generally, when we talk about the Florida team, like, they start off the stage well. They get the nice W versus the Ultra, which was impressive. Like, I think we were all somewhat impressed by the early result that they get. A lot of hype around this team being like, okay, maybe they're different. Then they beat London, and they go to the game 5 versus NYSL. They beat LAG, and then they lose the game 5 to Dallas. And it's like, wait, what? I thought they were a tier above Dallas. Like, I thought they were in a different category than the Empire. So I don't know. It's hard to predict this team. And then if we're talking about the Thieves, again, another team who's going to really improve when it comes down to a LAN environment. I mean, the Thieves literally made a roster change so that they could be more well suited for LAN. They are off the big loss versus Optic coming into this. They get the nice win versus LAG, but again, how much do you really take in regards to that series versus LAG? And then this will also be the Mutineers' first series. How does that kind of translate? Oh man, I don't know. I thought I was going to be more impressed by Mutineers. Like, when I started to get a few of their predictions wrong, I was like, okay, I was wrong. Like, this team is more well suited. And they don't close it out versus NYSL, who I don't think is as good as they've been. And then they don't close it out versus Empire, which was kind of surprising to me as well. So on the other side, Thieves, how good are they? And I guess the same question could be asked for the Mutineers. How good are they right now? But more specifically for the Thieves, you just beat the Gorillas, but what really does that mean? I am going to take the Mutineers for this one, but I am giving a lot of respect to the Thieves side because, despite this being this be like their 4th series, I think, with Slasher and Hook, I give a lot of respect to that team because they have a lot of potential to be great. I think, they've shown at times, little moments here or there where they just have a flash of brilliance, and it's just a matter of when can that coordinate, and maybe that game versus the Gorillas could propel them to walk away with one like this. But I just think that Florida, they've shown that they can be a great roster, and I am going to have them taking this in a game 5. I think that Thieves really do give it their best bet. I just think that Florida are just better in the end. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint something too, just because Florida are good in pretty much every mode. They're not necessarily bad at anything. They're also not necessarily unbelievable at anything either. But Florida has been great in game one hardpoint. That's something that's also mentioned as well. They are great out of the gates. I think that has helped them in a lot of their different series. So I'm going to give Florida the edge. Again, I'm very worried about that series because I think if you get the Thieves, in a rhythm, that could be a very interesting roster to try to face off against. So we move on. Paris versus Seattle. I know I have Seattle taking in the London Royal Ravens at 3-0. I hope the Surge do not mess with me in this. I feel like this is going to be a clip that gets tweeted back at me if I get it wrong. But this is also another rematch from stage 4. Paris, they do beat Surge 3-1. Again, we go from online now to LAN. Paris, they were not really an easy opponent for anybody in Group A, and this is honestly a team I would say along with Florida, maybe along with Thieves, depending on who gets the dub versus Florida or Thieves. But alongside those two rosters, Paris also had the ability to be a dark horse. Now, granted, they're going to have a very difficult matchup, and if they do get out of this one, but I think they have the ability to be a very scary type of roster in this particular environment, just because they have been better in S&D. They are contest heavy in the hard points. They've had a number of different hard points that have come down to the wire, and I think that they have the ability to handle kind of like a veteran type roster in an environment like this, now being on LAN. I also just fear that Paris could also very easily crumble because they look so much better in S&D, but I just don't know. Again, if you're not closing out games online in hardpoint, can you necessarily do that on LAN? Like, is it something that evolves over time and you get better at it? Or is it something that now gets more difficult by being in this environment? Or maybe it doesn't change at all. I really don't know. So I don't know. I know I have Seattle winning their first series. I think they do give this one a good effort, but I am going to take Paris. I want to send this to a game 5, but I think it will be a very close game for really just a close 4-game series. I think the Seattle will play them close. I think they'll give it a good effort, but I think that Paris, and again, I very well could be wrong with this. And I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm predicting it, I'm kind of going back against what I said, but I don't know. I just think that this roster looked good all throughout this stage. And I think that they have the ability to translate that into a LAN performance and at least get the job done here versus the Surge. So we'll go and advance off of that. And we'll go and move on to the next round here for the elimination side. We're in elimination round 3. So I'll go and show like a quick little preview of where we're going. So NYSL and Florida, like I said, staying in the elimination round 3 side. Florida, they get the W versus Thieves. New York, like we talked about, are off the loss versus Rocker to start things off. Does go down to a game 4. NYSL, oh man, where do you go with this team? Like, have they figured things out now? They do lose versus Minnesota. Maybe they have a better grasp coming into this series. I just think that this game is going to be a brawl. I don't know why. I just think that maybe New York feel desperation now, or maybe, like you said, you give just that one series for Decimate and Hydra to kind of pick things up. Like maybe they kind of get in a little bit of a better rhythm. On the Florida side, you squeak by a win versus Thieves. What Florida do we get now? Like, is it going to be this inconsistent team? They go to a game 5 last time we saw them back in stage 4. But again, that's New York with ASIM. This is a different team. This is a different type of roster. But I honestly, I do want to give New York a win because I feel like it's hard to say that New York, with how great of a team that this is, like I think that Glacier is going to be better on LAN. He hasn't had a great stage 4 so far in comparison to his prior one. But Hydra's been great. Mac has been unbelievable. It's just hard for me to think that like they could literally come into this tournament, still add a great player like Decimate and go 0-2. Like it's weird for me to say that. And versus teams like Minnesota and Florida who are good, but should not be on the same level as this team. So it's kind of weird to say that, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to. I'm afraid that I'm going to have to. This is one where I am going to go 3-0. I know I said I think it's going to be a brawl. I think it's just going to be 3 close games. I think it's going to be 3 close games where New York get competitive. But I just think the Mutineers in game 1 have been great. I think if they can take that hardpoint versus New York, that's where a lot of this can really stem from. It's a matter of New York just not being able to rely on hardpoint as much, not having that same aggressiveness. Depending on maps, maybe things kind of get a little bit weird where maybe New York gets some good ones in there, and then maybe the S&D gets better for New York as well. So I'm kind of hesitant to go 3-0, but I think I'm going to stick with it. I'm going I'm going to ride with this prediction for now. I think that New York had the ability to be more competitive in this one. Maybe they go to a game 5. Like maybe that it's so weird. Like I could easily go from a 3-0 just to a 3-2. It's just like one little line of thinking can totally change the way that you think about these series, which makes it fun. But I'm still going to stick with the 3-0. I'm going to stick with the 3-0 for now. And we're just going to leave it. Just going to leave that series alone and move on because we have to for the video's time sake. So now we have Dallas versus Paris. Okay, so an interesting matchup. Dallas off of a close win versus Optic, rather close loss, excuse me, versus Optic. They lose that one in game 5. Paris, they get a solid win versus Seattle. I think this has the ability to be a fun match, a pretty exciting one. It is always interesting to see how certain teams, maybe kind of lower caliber teams, react to playing more steeper competition. And while I do think the Legion can run with Empire, I just think the Shotzzy's going to be too fast. I think he's going to be too much to handle. I like the SMGs for Paris, but I just think from a respawn perspective, I don't think he's going to be able to be handled. I don't think that they're going to be able to handle a player like him. And I don't also see a great opening for Paris either, where they could build up to something like that. I think it'll have to be in hard points and search and destroys, but I think Empire will be too strong there. I don't think that Paris are going to be able to rely on a control where Dallas, maybe could be weak there too. So I'm going to give this one to Dallas. I think the Empire closed out in 3-1. I think that Legion give it their best, but I just don't think that they are suited enough or are a roster that can take down a team like Dallas. The matchups just don't make enough sense. The prior gameplay doesn't make enough sense for them to be able to lock up a series like this. So I'm going to be going Dallas for this game. And so we kind of move on again now to our next elimination side. It is now elimination round 4. It is Optic versus Florida. Another very difficult one to predict because, again, Florida, where do you kind of see this team that is now going to be one victory versus the Thieves, their second victory versus New York, and now they're matching up against Optic. Optic are off of a loss versus the Ultra and winners round 2. So momentum has to be on Florida's side, at least coming into that first hard point. I just don't know how much I rely on the Mutineers to be a top tier team, or at least to take down top tier rosters. I think Chicago has become too much of a problem at this point. I think they've become too much of a problem for the Mutineers to handle. I think Dashy has so much potential to take off. I think Formal is going to be much better in a LAN environment. And I think that I just like their consistency too much as well in the S&Ds, where Scump has the ability to take over. I like this matchup just because I think the roles are going to be fun to watch, like Dashy versus Awakening, Slash versus Skies, Formal in that conversation. Then you have Neptune and Havoc, who I guess you could say aren't necessarily similar to Optic, but you kind of have the craftiness of like what Havoc likes to do around the map is kind of similar to Envoy. You have the explosiveness and just kind of the uncharacteristicness sometimes of a Neptune to a Scump. So not necessarily the same correlation, but something that's kind of similar. So I think this could be a really fun series to watch, but I just trust Chicago too much. I trust them too much to kind of throw off Florida in the opening hard points. I think the S&Ds very well could go Chicago's way, and then Control could be back and forth. I mean, at times Mutineers just don't look great in Control. So again, I think it'll be a really good matchup. I honestly could see this one going either way. But I'm gonna give Chicago the nod. I think LAN wise, maybe just being in a different environment, maybe hype wise, this team has a little more better leadership. I think from the Florida side, they're a great team. Havoc's gonna have to really be, their guy whenever they get to this environment. It's gonna be fun to watch. This is also our first time to watch Awakening on LAN as well. I don't know if I've already mentioned that, at least from the CDL perspective. So that's gonna be a lot of fun to witness as well. But I think that the Mutineers go home in the elimination round 4, and we leave this being like, maybe Florida just weren't that team that we thought that they could be. But again, at the same time, if they get a victory here, then we're saying, hey, okay, Florida, they've showed up. They have showed us that they could be a top caliber roster. I don't know if they could take down Chicago though in this particular time. So moving on, Dallas versus Minnesota. This will be the 5th time, if it does happen, the 5th time this season these teams have matched up. 3 out of those 4 times that they previously, went up against each other, it has gone to a game 5. I think it does again. I do. I think it's just a straight back and forth battle. You win a game, we win a game, you win a game, we win a game. Goes down to a game 5. These teams are historically Very fun to watch, of course. You do have a lot on the side of Dallas, considering that they, take down Paris, then they come into this game feeling good. Minnesota, meanwhile, do lose a game versus Atlanta. Minnesota, again, are a team that I think could be very good coming into this event. But I'm gonna have Dallas. I am gonna have Dallas winning this. I know I've been talking about LAN a lot, and I don't want to invest in it too much because I don't think it's gonna play like the biggest. I don't know if it's gonna be an unbelievable difference from online to LAN. I really don't think it will be. But I think from a confidence standpoint, I just trust the Empire in Game 5 situations. I trust this team. I trust Ilya to go big. I trust Shotzi. I trust Krem, and I now trust Vivid in these big moments to just kind of have these highlight plays, to have these strategies that Minnesota just aren't prepared for. I could go game by game and maybe give a better in-depth look at how I think this one goes, but I really do. I think this one goes down to a Game 5, and Dallas just clutch up. I think the Dallas do. I think that again we kind of leave this being like, Rocker, man, if they could just be better in S&D, how good could they be? Like how much better could they be in this particular environment? How much better could they be at the stage 5 or in the stage 5 major, for example, if that S&D can be toned up? So I think that Minnesota do depart here. And now that sets us up for two wonderful matches in both the winners final and elimination round 5, aka elimination semis. Oh boy. And I'll tell you what, we'll actually go now to the winners side. We'll go to Atlanta versus Toronto. Goodness sake, probably the two best teams in the game right now. This is the 7th time that these teams have matched up this season, if it does in fact happen. Outside of the Major 2 final, Atlanta has won every single battle. You could argue the battle that they, did not win was probably the biggest one. But they also did face off twice at the stage 3 major. Faze got the win there twice. And I think both of those did go down to a Game 5 at the stage 3 major. So where do you kind of evaluate this one? And again, I just think when you get to this extent, it's almost like impossible to predict, because I could very well say, oh, Atlanta wins the hard point. Well, Toronto, they could also win the hard point. Okay, now we'll go to the S&D. Well, both teams could win the S&D. Control, they're the two best teams in Control. Take your pick. Really don't know where to go with this. I feel like Atlanta has beaten Toronto by winning the S&Ds in a respawn. I feel like Atlanta has beaten Toronto by winning the hard points in an S&D, or maybe just all 3 respawns. Like, these teams have matched up so much that they know exactly what it is about each other. They know how to take each other down. They also know the strengths and weaknesses of the other side. I just think it's going to be an all-out brawl. But I don't think it's going to go to a Game 5, though. I don't think it's going to go to I don't think it's going to go down to a Game 5. Again, I like the Ultra a lot, and I don't want to invest too much into this, but Bance, I know he did tweet not long ago how he was warming up Atlanta coming into a match that Atlanta had later that day. Ultra, they were just trying to scrimmage teams just to get some practice themselves, help Atlanta get practice. And he basically said it kind of made him want to cry. Like, I think it was more of a funny joke, but I just think that Atlanta have the ability to really punish you if you just make a slight mistake. And at times we do see the Ultra team make a mistake here or there. I know Arceus, who has been amazing, had like a slow last series or last 2 series. I think he's going to be in a much better form as well. And I just think this is going to be time for Simp to really just show out. The last time we saw this guy in LAN, he was unbelievable. Whenever he is in this LAN environment, he can take over. And I think he's kind of been, and I compared this not long ago. I forget what podcast it was. I know that whenever you do compare players to, professional sports players, it can get kind of, a little bit crazy. But I would kind of compare, for my sports fans out there, I would kind of compare Simp in some ways to a LeBron. Now, be careful. Like I said, I want to be careful with this, but in the sense that whenever Simp needs to go off, he'll do that. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about current LeBron, because I know the Lakers just got eliminated in the first round of the winners cup, whatever. But what I'm trying to say is that classic LeBron, whatever you really want to say it, LeBron is considered to be a pass first type of player, meaning that he wants to allow for his teammates to be able to go off, and then whenever he needs to, he will. I think that Simp has at times gone into this role where it's like, okay, Cell's going off. All right, I'll let him go off. RCTC's having himself a stage. Great, go for it. Abizi looking absolutely amazing. One of his best Call of Duties that he has ever had, if not his best. Sure, go for it. Whenever I need to go off, whenever I need to show out, let's say I have a nice streak to start off the game, cool. I'm going to do that. This team just has the freedom to do these things. And I think this is going to be a particular stage, an environment where Sim's like, okay, now's my time, right? I've given you guys your opportunities, but now I'm going to go ahead and take the reins, and I'm going to go ahead and lead us to some big W's. And I think that he does here. I think that Toronto do steal a map. I say steal, I think they win a map. I don't think they steal it as in like, oh my gosh, Toronto, wow, they won a map. Not like that. But I think that Atlanta closed this one out 3-1. And that just kind of goes to show that Atlanta sit firmly in that major final. You know, they look good doing it. They look phenomenal coming into this this event. They go 5-0, 15-2. Granted, Ultra, you know, they are on a huge streak where they come into this event winning 4 straight 3-0s. They are not an easy team by any means. I think that Ultra can very well win this series also. But I just trust the guys in Atlanta. I trust Simp specifically to step up in these big moments. And I think it will now be Simp's opportunity to step up if Aristides is not playing nearly as well as he has been. And I think if Simp's turning up, that will really counter the SMGs of the Ultra. And if the SMGs are not firing the way that they have to from the Ultra side, that at times can hold them back. That was the one thing that held them back before they reached kind of this top caliber style. Whenever they were at the stage 2 major, it was Bance and Kleenex who really kind of rose to the occasion and finally joined alongside Cammy and Kleenex, or rather, excuse me, Cammy and Insight. So I think if the SMGs do get countered here, I like Atlanta Faze. I think Simp and Abizi are still the best SMG duo in the league, and their ARs are not too shabby either. So let's go put it that way. So with that, it means, like I said, Atlanta Faze are now in the major final. Who is going to meet the Toronto Ultra in the elimination final? Who gets top 3 after another Clasico battle? Chicago got the best of them in game 5 last time, according to my bracket. And I would say that at this point, Empire, they're finding some consistency. Like I said, they do get the job done versus Paris. They win versus Rocker. You know, they've had their fair share of close games. Like they go to a game 5 versus Minnesota. Can they do it versus Optic? Can they kind of continue on to maybe be that elimination bracket type of roster at this event? I just realistically think that the hype for this series is going to be there. I think everybody's going to be playing their best COD. It's going to be another matchup, another opportunity for Dallas to try and, you know, prove otherwise. But I think Chicago dig deep. I do. I think that Chicago dig deep. I don't know what it is. I just have a feeling that Optic are going to play better at this one. And I'm going to say it goes down to another game 5. I think it could be kind of another great battle. It just feels right that we're going to go back to LAN and we're going to have the Clasico twice. It's going to be Optic coming out on top. And a few of these battles, you know, Chicago just looks like they're a better respawn team right now. Like they kind of look like a classic Optic type of team. And I do think that Dallas give it their best bet. I would be more confident that this goes to a game 5 rather than the first one. So if you're kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to trust Landon because he's going Optic to win versus Dallas and back-to-back 3-2s, and game 5s are already kind of risky sometimes for predictions, just considering how heavily stage 4 was about 3-0s and 3-1s. But if I were to go for a game 5 prediction, I think that this one goes to it no matter what. I just do. I would be surprised if we see one of these teams win this in a convincing 3-1. But yeah, I think it does. I think Chicago just get the job done. I think they just look better on the day. I think the respawns are too good, and I think they're just a little bit too crafty down the stretch. I know that Dallas are historically amazing in game 5s. I think that will help them at times, but I don't know. I just have the feeling. I'm not going to go against it. You know, I kind of went with this feeling a few different times whenever I was making my stage 3 major bracket, and I'm just going to go with it this time. So I had to go for a quick sip. We've been talking for what 50 minutes straight? Okay. So now our top 3 teams, we have Optic, Ultra, and Faze. Who is going to join alongside Atlanta in the major final? And it also will be double points in that major final as well, which I learned despite having a perfect bracket until the major final. If you don't have the major final right, you're kind of screwed. So I learned that firsthand. So make sure that your major final is as accurate as it can possibly be. Anyway, Ultra versus Optic. Another rematch, right? This is going down from winners round 2. We look all the way back. Ultra, that's right. They beat Optic in a 3-1 fashion. How will this one go? How will this particular game go down? I had Ultra winning this 3-1, and prior, I think it goes down to the wire, and I'm betting on a better Chicago performance. I think that this one at one point will be Optic up 2-1. I think Optic maybe takes the first hard point. Maybe this is a reverse sweep type of situation for Ultra, or maybe it's Ultra who fires out. We go to 1-1. Now we're coming into the control where it's like, okay, Chicago, you've been good here previously. Ultra, one of the best control teams in the entire game. Maybe it's Ultra who are up 2-1. That's probably the more likely scenario. And then Optic win a hard point. They get some momentum. Now we come into the game 5, and I'm going Toronto. I'm going to be going Ultra. I just think that this team, again, is too well versed in every single game mode. I just think from a number of different perspectives that this team is well suited for each game. And I think that they have the ability to cause issues in every single one of them. So their hard point's looking better. Their control is incredible. And then S&D as well is fantastic for them from time to time as well. So it's like, you just don't really know, again, where to hit this team at. And I think that they are guaranteed to basically, if you're a great hardpoint team, they're probably going to win one of them in at least a 4-game series. So that's the way I have it. I think Toronto clutch up, and now we have Atlanta Faze versus the Toronto Ultra. These are probably the two teams that most analysts will have in their final. What most analysts will have either one of these teams winning the major. Just to let you know, most people think that Atlanta Faze is the number 1 team. Most people think that the Toronto Ultra are the number 2 team in the game. So there we have it. I think that this will be a brawl because, again, I have another rematch. I have Chicago versus Dallas as a rematch. I have Ultra versus Optic as a rematch, and I have Atlanta versus Ultra as a rematch. So this will be like the 8th time that they have matched up versus each other. They've just played each other in the winners final. Faze beat them 3-1. Will this be different? I do not think so. I think map pool wise, Atlanta will be able to outlast them. Again, I just think it's another situation where the SMGs can just not handle Simp and Abizi. I think that the playmaking from Ultra is fantastic. I just have just this feeling about Atlanta that they're going to turn up, that they're going to be a team that just is able to rise to the occasion. But I think it's going to be close. And I do. I think that it has the ability to maybe see a final game, but I'm gonna lock in 5-3. I'm gonna lock in 5-3. More of a safe bet. It's so hard to best of 9. Like, we're going to see basically, for the most part, almost every single map that's out there in the map pool. I think that Atlanta has the best map pool in the game. And again, coming into this, they're 7-0 in hardpoint. They're 4-1 in S&D. They're 4-1 in control. And so I think if you are able to win consistent hardpoints versus the Ultra, and then at least go back and forth in the S&Ds and maybe the controls, I think that could be what sets them apart. You're going to have 3 hard points in a best of 9. I could be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure it's like 3 S&Ds, 4 hard points, 2 controls. Wait, no, it's 4 S&Ds, 3 hard points, 2 controls. So, let's say they split the controls 1-1. Let's say that they win a majority of the hard points. Let's say they go 2-1 in the hard points, and then we're going to have 4 S&Ds. So that's going to be, let's say, like 2-2. I would maybe give Faze a little bit of an edge there, maybe 3-1. So with that, I'd have 5-4, but I think they probably win an extra S&D. So I'm going to say that Atlanta wins 2-1 in the hard points. I think they win 1-1 in the controls, and they go 3-1 in terms of the S&Ds. And maybe the S&Ds get traded, and I don't know exactly how it's all going to go, but that's kind of the way that I see this one shaping up. I just have too much confidence in Atlanta. I think they go back-to-back in the majors. There's a big conversation about this team now coming into champs, talking about, okay, they are without a doubt the undisputed top dogs. How can they prepare throughout the Stage 5 regular season to be ready for another chance at trying to win a world championship? I'm going to be excited for it. I'm going to be very excited for this match. I think it's going to be great. Again, it's a rematch from the Stage 2 major final. Maybe Ultra could pull off something special, but I don't think that they will. I don't think they're going to be able to pull off that same magic. I think this is a different Atlanta Faze team. I think they've learned from their mistakes, and that's the way that I have it. We're sitting at an hour right now almost, so I appreciate everybody for tuning into this. I'm going to lock in my bracket. Sometimes it doesn't actually submit, so I may have to go through this one after. Oh, we're going through it. Confirm your predictions. We're submitting it right now. Submitting it. Doing it live. taking a minute. CDL's being like, okay, Land's putting his predictions. Okay, let's check over this. Who does he have winning it? Okay. He has Surge winning the first game. Okay. All right. Yeah. But there we go. There we have it. Official bracket is intact. We'll look at it one last time. Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm hoping that we watch this afterward, just being like, wow, we nearly did it. Or wow, we made the perfect bracket. Like I said, this is going to be much harder, in my opinion. This major will be much harder to predict than stage 3. Quote it wherever you want to do. I just think that based off where the teams sit, the upset potential, being on LAN, New York having a different team, like that really throws a lot of interesting pieces into the machine. A lot of interesting notes kind of coming into this event in terms of like what really is going to happen. But I think undisputedly Atlanta Faze look like the best team. I think they're going to continue to ride that out as being the best team. But Ultra, I think they're right there. And maybe in stage 5, maybe at the stage 5 major, they prove otherwise. I think it's a great battle. This has been such a wonderful matchup throughout the season. But I think that it is Atlanta versus Ultra to close things out. I'm hoping double points going our way for Game Fuel. That would be great. But guys, like I said, let me know in the comments below what you think about the bracket. Is there something you disagree with? A lot of things that you do agree with. Like, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to let me know on Twitter as well. Tweet at me at LandO on social media. You can also find me on Instagram as well. That was linked below throughout this entire video. Let me know, like I said, what your thoughts are on the bracket. Surprising teams. Who can be a dark horse? That is always my favorite conversation when it comes down to majors, is who has the potential to be this dark horse team. On Saturday, we do have teams that are playing at times back-to-back matches. That can affect things. That can kind of affect momentum. Who could possibly be that roster? So I'm excited. I'm excited for the event. It's going to be awesome. Again, it is our first time being back on LAN in such a long time. It's going to be great. So much fun for the players. And I think it's going to be a great viewing experience for everybody out there. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you get the opportunity to watch lots of the Stage 4 Major. I'm going to have a great time commentating it alongside my good old buddy Stud and the entire team. We're super excited to show you guys the broadcast. It's going to be electric. It's going to be fun. And I think it's going to be our best major that we've had so far. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully that you guys are too. If you made it to this point in the video, I really appreciate it. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe, do all those fun things. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, enjoyed this episode of LandO's Lock-ins, and I will see you guys all next week for another edition, another episode. I guess it'll be 2 weeks from now because we will have the break after this, but you get the point. Hoping that we come back next time with a great bracket, and we're feeling confident coming into stage 5. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.